Similitude of a Dream, brand new double album from the Neal Morse band. A lot of history for Neal. He was considered to be prog royalty in some ways with his alliances with Spock's Beard, which was his original band. Of course, he has membership in Transatlantic, Yellow Mare Custard. He's had a solo career that has definitely been influenced by the fact that he became a born-again Christian back in 2002, so 14 years ago. It certainly has influenced the albums that have followed within his solo career and solo catalog. Now, Mike Portnoy has helped him out on this album on the drums. This is one that has sort of a supergroup feel to it a little bit, although it's still Neal Morse as the placeholder, and this is an album that does draw from some material. It draws off of the Pilgrim's Progress, which was written by John Bunyan back in the 1600s. It's considered a very important piece of Christian English literature. This sort of draws from it a little bit. It's not a copy-paste of the story or anything by that stretch, but this double disc album does draw on a lot of the themes from part 1 and part 2 of that work, which I really wish I would have read because it seems like it's pretty good just by reading summaries and the like. So what do you get from the Neal Morse band? I mean, it's progressive rock, so you have an easy idea right out of the gate, but is this something that is going to stand out among the progressive community? And there will be a lot that will listen to this ambitious project and they will immediately say, yes, it does. I mean, it's got all of the real earmarks for being one of the better pieces of music to come from the progressive universe here in 2016. It has a very epic feel to it. There's storytelling that is taking part throughout all of the tracks on this disc, all of the 20 or so that you gain. And it is one that has a real message behind it. Now, do we have any epic tracks on here? We have only one, which is the closing song of this whole entire idea, Broken Sky and Long Day Reprise, which nearly hits the 10-minute mark. But aside from that, no song on this album really flirts with that 10-minute persuasion. Now, I like disc 1 on this a lot more than disc 2. I feel like it's a little bit more focused, though I do say that disc 2 is a little bit more diverse. This is the first of 2 double disc albums we will be tackling this week, with the other being Hardwired to Self-Destruct, and I think that this is the one where you're going to find a lot more variety of the two. And you get that right away whenever you get from Long Day to Overture and The Dream, and the reasoning for this is because it is setting up a little bit of what you gain, kind of getting you a little bit of setting, or at least a little bit of mental setting from what the source material is able to paint. And you get a little bit more focus, I think, on the first disc with that also. And it's not one that's going to necessarily follow it piece by piece, but it certainly has some drawing points. And I like how this music is able to swirl, but it's very traditional prog. It has a lot of the same stables that you will have gotten from a number or a myriad of different artists from the genre, especially in the 90s to 2000s era. It does have that feel. This is not all of that distant from many of the other groups, which can be a very good thing considering it has a sort of familiar context to it, but at some points it can also be a little bit negative considering there's not a lot that sets it apart. And you do kind of need to do that if you really want to be, seen as somebody who's taking the genre to the next level and really exude excellence. And I like tracks such as City of Destruction and We Have Got to Go, but then it's followed up by a song such as Makes No Sense, which has a very preachy element to it, which is, I guess, somewhat associative with the source material a little bit. With the first part of the Pilgrim's Progress really captures a person who is trying to pass from the earthly city into the city of gold, or in this case it's the celestial city, and it's this journey that's very much similar to any big time epic. You could easily compare this as the light side to Dante's Inferno, or even the Lord of the Rings, although the Lord of the Rings would come 300 years later. It's a journey that must be taken. It's one that's taken with friends in mind, but with trials that also need to be overcome. And I believe that that's one of the main reasons why this is being seen by many as such an important piece of faith, considering it has a lot of the same ideas that we experience in life. But Makes No Sense does feel a little bit preachy in that regard, and this is something that's been a bit of a complaint of mine within Neal Morse's solo career, is that yes, we do understand the born-again Christian idea, but it sometimes comes across a little bit too much. It's a little bit too forward. He has done some work where it has been, solely faith-based. This is really not intended to 100% be that, but have some power within it, have some influence in there as well. Just really didn't feel that track, and it sort of killed some momentum that you got from the very first 5 tracks off of this album. I thought that was really going strong. But going in to Draw the Line, the slog, and Back to the City, things are going pretty well once again. Again, I love the way in which the keys sort of swirl over these guitar licks that you gain. You're getting a fair amount of variety whenever it comes to pacing, and that's another thing that's very critical. So the album itself, which is about 52 minutes for the first half, is not really one that's drawing you or lulling you into a comfort zone. Instead, it's keeping you a bit on your toes, but it still does have a lot of those registers of just another Neal Morse project. And you notice that we're saying that quite a bit. But then we get to The Ways of a Fool, and all of a sudden things change, and that's why I mentioned his involvement with Yellow Manor Custard, considering this feels like it is a Beatles song that has been transformed a little bit into prog and given to this album to really paint a picture and really aid with this story, which is going pretty well, but it really runs the risk of very easily having the wheels sort of fall off. This really refocuses everything, and it starts off a longer finish to disc 1, where this track nearly clocks in at 7 minutes. The next track so far gone is about 5.5, and Breath of Angels, which is excellent also. Very, very good finale to this first disc, is also nearly 7 minutes and captivating as hell. I think that the second half of this disc really sort of takes all of the mistakes that were perhaps made throughout its midway portion and makes you forget about it a good bit. It leaves you with a very strong feeling going into disc 2. Now, disc 2 is extremely interesting in how varied that it is. There are moments that seem like they are locked into the 1970s, and not just in prog, by the way. We're not talking about some of the King Crimson vibes that you can gain from some of these songs, but we're also talking just standard hard rock that you gain from a few of these also. Tracks such as The Man in the Iron Cage, The Road Called Home, and going into The Running in the Mask. This is one where I was predicting that the second Metallica disc on Hardwired to Self-Destruct would be, extremely varied, considering how similar the first 3 tracks that we've gotten from that band has sounded. But this is the Neal Morse band actually doing it. It's actually happening. I have no idea about the Metallica disc BTW, but this is very much an exercise in a lot of different styles coming together, and it does make the second disc a little bit more captivating in that manner, because you don't really know what you're going to get with each passing track. It's one that feels like a very mixed bag, like a lot of those different collective influences came together on here in order to provide a lot of variety, but based off of that, it also does feel a little bit unfocused. It feels a little off balance, and based off of that, it does come off, in the end, despite the praise of that idea, as the weaker of the 2 discs. This is one where I love the experimentation. I love some of those callbacks to 70s style music, 70s prog, again mentioning King Crimson, and really some of his older work in Spock's Beer, which is 90s style, but they had a lot of drawing points from 80s prog. That is definitely a breath of nice air, but all in all, the highlight of this is honestly the finale. It is Broken Sky going into Long Day, the reprise. This is nearly 10 minutes, as I said previously, and it's very, very well done. It's magnificently done. This is one, though, where the wheels already had fallen off just a little bit beforehand, and this could not recover everything. All of that variety leaves the second disc as a little less worthy of remembrance as opposed to the first. You definitely don't get as much out of it. But Broken Sky is instantly recognizable in your mind. It does feel a little bit more traditional. It does have a little bit more of the, modern prog staple to it. It's something, again, where you're hearing some of these tones in tons of contemporaries, but it's handled so well. The storytelling is so solid, and the way that you leave this track, the way that you feel after you leave this track just is what bears that instant memory I think that Portnoy did a fairly decent job with the drums here. At times, he was excellent, but there are other moments where he felt a little underutilized. And I don't know if that's really anybody's burden to share. I don't think that there's anybody that you can really blame for that, because Mike has just a great reputation and also is just fantastic in all settings. So perhaps some of that underutilization is based off of just generalized feeling. But his variety and his style of play really comes out a bit whenever we get into the second disc. It does show his diversity as a skinsman, which we already knew, so it was not telling us any new information. But it's still nice to hear and nice to see. I don't know, this is a weird album for me. I came in expecting great things, and I was not necessarily disappointed, but I sort of expected a little bit more than what I got. Again, some of that variety that you gain is some very nice touches, but it does leave some of the focus in question. I think that this disc could have really benefited from a little more structure, which it seems absurd to even suggest, but just a little bit more. And maybe Neal Morse, for me, is just not the band to call to if I want something of this variety. Maybe there's something that's lost in translation between him and I, and that's just a communication breakdown that we'd have to repair. Between you and me, I would be better pressed to check out a brand new transatlantic album than perhaps return to this one. But I know that I'm certainly probably more alone in that than I am within a group of people. I would give this an 82 out of 100. I know that there are going to be some that are going to think this is heresy. I think that that's absolutely heretical, but it just wasn't one that captured me the way that I sort of expected that it would. I listened to this one on multiple of occasions and thought that something would just jut out and all of a sudden I'd have that aha moment. It didn't come. Maybe it'll come sometime in the future. Maybe I'll return to this in 5 months and all of a sudden the light will shine upon me and I will be saved. But until that day comes, this is where I'm at. I want to know what you think about the Similitude of a Dream by Neal Morse Band. Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. If you guys want to check out the Dream Theater discography that was done a few years ago, scope out the link to your left. The link to your right will take you to 2016's other album reviews throughout the heavy metal and hard rock landscape. Scope that out. You can also subscribe to the channel and scope out my Patreon. Coverkillernation, thanks again for watching and have a great day.